Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Absolute Podcast. I'm your host, Jasmine Templin, online coach, personal trainer, and bikini competitor pro. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about all of the tips possible that you need to know when it comes to getting through a build phase or bulk, depending what you want to call it. Now, bear with me if my audio isn't amazing. The software that I normally use to record my podcast episodes and my microphone is not working for whatever reason, but that's no excuse to not be uploading a podcast every single Friday for you guys. So I'm using Zoom to record this episode today. So I just apologize if the mic isn't up to the normal standard that it is at. Got some big plans for the podcast as well. So bear with me. I know you guys are loving it and I love it as well. So I just really appreciate you all for being here. So with further ado, let's get into the episode. As I said, we are going to be talking about all the tips you need to know when it comes to getting through a build phase, some tips as well. Now, when it comes to sustaining and sticking to a build phase, the more time we can spend building, the better. So general rule of thumb, I always like to tell my clients, whatever time we spent cutting, we want to double it, and that's the time we want to spend building. I know that can sound like a lot. So if you just did a 6-month contest prep, that's going to mean you want to be spending and giving yourself back at least another year. That may sound like a lot, but it's really not. You really do want to be spending more time of the year than not out of a deficit. Okay, so you really do want to be spending as much time as you can possibly can building. So one of the tips that I really recommend when in a build phase is not to get lazy with our food choices. It is really common in a build phase to lose our appetite, to lose food focus. Naturally, these are actually really fantastic things to happen when in a build phase. It means what we're doing is working, your body is feeling super safe and regulated and feeling like it does not need any more food, which is a good thing, especially when we are wanting to be in the most optimal position to be able to build muscle. But quite often what can happen is that we lose our appetite and we just aren't hungry. We're not food focused. We're not even thinking about, micronutrients. We just get to a point where we're like, oh, I'm not even hungry. Just whatever can give me the calories at the most convenient way possible. And then before we know it, we're eating lollies as pre-workout. We are having those pre-made protein shakes from the store. We're having maybe takeout a little bit more frequently than what we probably should. And as a result, our training performance is not going to be as good as it should be. Quite often, our training performance can actually decrease when in a build phase if our food quality is not up to par. So we really do want to make sure that we are including a variety of micronutrients, which is our vitamins, minerals, have enough fiber as well. It is super important because realistically in our build phase, that is where our training performance should be our best. So we want to be, and with the calories that we have, we want to be making sure that we're incorporating a wide variety of vegetables, fruits, whole grains. The more, the better. Not just how many ice creams can I fit into my macros today. It's not that. And the longer that you track macros and that you experience this for yourself, the more you naturally want to eat healthier. So if you are currently maybe not eating as healthy as you should, just ask to yourself, instead of thinking, where can I take away in terms of your foods, having a different mindset and saying, okay, where can I add in more micronutrients? Where can I add in more fruits and vegetables? Having that mindset and saying, where can I add in instead of take out is really going to be so much more realistic for you to be able to stick to as well. Now, one of the other mindset barriers that can come in when we are in a build phase is not feeling like we are that lean anymore or feeling softer around the edges, feeling a little bit fluffier, which is very natural, part of a build phase, part of the process. And we do want to get comfortable being uncomfortable because that is really where the magic happens. And quite often when we are in a build phase, we don't really feel like we're making any progress at all. Like even though it's technically easier because our calories are increased, our cardio is decreased, even though our build phase is technically easier, it's in a way kind of harder, especially mentally. In a cut, if you're being adherent, that is, of course, you're feeling really good, you're visually looking leaner, your scales are dropping every single week, you're seeing the hard-earned muscle that you had built in your build phase. And when you're in a fat loss phase, you almost feel like you're building muscle, even though you're not. You're just revealing the muscle that you had built in your build phase, and then you can actually reveal it in your cut. So it's just always about remembering those things, that it's such a long term and it's going to be worth it for that long-term physique goal. So you just have to push through being a little bit softer than what you like if you want to make those physique gains. And that doesn't mean you have to get, gain a whole bunch of unnecessary body fat, and you don't have to gain 20 kilos by any means or anything crazy like that. Like, you can still stay lean. It's just maybe in comparison to your end of cut physique, you may feel a little bit softer, and that is okay. Another tip that I really recommend is just to not body check. It's a huge habit that we can get in the habit of doing, especially when in our fat loss phase. We're lifting up our shirt, checking the abs, we're checking ourselves in the mirror a little bit more. But, sometimes just taking a step back and think, okay, am I body checking a little bit too much? Because it's not the best habit if you are actively gaining a little bit of body fat with the muscle that you are gaining as well. You do want to make sure that you're going as slow as possible when it comes to your reverse diet, build phase, bulk. A big term kind of in the industry, I feel like I don't really hear it much now, but kind of back in the day, was dirty bulking. And basically it's kind of just like an excuse to be a little bit lazy when you're not dieting, is just, going through a bit of a dirty bulk just to try and gain as much muscle as possible, and you gain all this fat and you're just doing it in a really unhealthy, not tracking, not eating enough protein kind of way. Like, it's not ideal. We do not, and I do not recommend that, especially for the ladies. Guys, of course, as well, but guys can typically get away with it a little bit more, especially with that higher testosterone. So, we want to make sure, and we can't expect to have the best cut possible if we're, getting lazy with our tracking the off season. So as much as it can be mentally hard, like, I get it, but when you go through build phases more and more, you become a little bit more trusting of the process. And having done, so many cuts after a build phase as well, you really do see your physique change so differently every single time, which is always so rewarding. But in order to reap those benefits, you need to make sure that you're sticking out during that build phase. Another thing that we can struggle with is, as I said kind of before, in regards to the part of losing our appetite. Of course, as I said, I really do encourage having those whole foods. Absolutely. But sometimes there are also whole foods we can have that are more calorie dense. So that's another tip that I have, is just finding those more calorie dense foods that we can incorporate to help hit those numbers, especially when our calories do get that on the, on that high end there, where we're, kind of really having to push the calories, or really not hungry. And as I said, there are more whole foods that we can have to help hit those numbers. Of course, in terms of the non quote unquote healthy the not so healthy foods to help hit those numbers, there are plenty of that when it comes to, more calorie dense foods, like your quote unquote junk food, like your ice cream, like your chocolate, that kind of thing, which, great, it is part of a balanced diet, absolutely. However, in terms of actual whole foods that are calorie dense, and there's so many of that. Like, even just doing something like buying the V8 juice or the orange juice, that's great, or making a smoothie at home. You can make an easy 1,000-calorie smoothie and not even really feel like you've eaten. You can chuck peanut butter in there, you can do some oats, some frozen banana, any kind of fruit, some mango, yum, protein powder. Even weight gainer shakes are fantastic to help get in those calories, even if you were to just half a scoop it, because you don't eat that many calories. You can get those glucose gels as well that a lot of cyclists use, or endurance athletes do have, just to help keep up the energy to sustain that. I used to have those in like my second bulk I ever did, like 10 years ago. They're like so gross and so sweet, and I honestly haven't even seen them at the shops in so long. It was back when Coles and Woolies never used to sell protein bars, and we're like, yes, we have something that's, is more athlete focused. But I remember having that pre-training sessions, and I used to like just not like it. It was like, oh, gotta get in these carbs, which they are really high sugar. Obviously, it's just sugar, which is glucose. But fantastic prior to training, which obviously very calorie dense with that as well. And even just like adding more rice to your meals, having those more starchy carbs, having whole grain breads as well. Oats, you can easily make some pretty calorie dense oats as well. There are just some foods that we can incorporate that are still not so, that are still pretty healthy for us. And as well, sometimes people are like, oh, but bread isn't that healthy, or cereals or whatnot. But if you actually look at the food pyramid, it's pretty damn close to the bottom in terms of, whole grains is so important. Like back in the day, the whole grain section used to be on the very bottom before fruits and vegetables replaced it. I do like the updated one. I think it's definitely a lot more accurate in terms of what food balance should be looking like for us. But ultimately, it's at the second bottom of the food pyramid in terms of how much that we want to be incorporating per day. So all those grains, ideally trying to stick to whole grain is fantastic, and you're going to stay a lot fuller for longer as well if you are getting that whole grain options, a lot more fiber in it as well. So in terms of the tips that I've chatted so far, we are talking about just making sure you're not getting lazy, incorporate those micronutrients and your fiber, make sure you're choosing calorie dense foods if you don't have much of an appetite. Drinking your calories is fantastic. Don't body check, and pushing through you feeling a little bit softer, and just understanding those mindset hurdles. And then whatever time that you spend dieting, you're going to want to double it, and that's the time you're going to want to spend reverse dieting. So that is some of the really key main tips that I can't stress enough when it comes to that build phase. And checking in with yourself, have a spreadsheet. If you're not working with a coach, first of all, highly recommend it. Otherwise, you're probably going to do so many things wrong and things that you shouldn't be doing that a coach would not get you to do. I have tried to bulk by myself in the past, and even our own set of eyes on our physique is just a not accurate representation in terms of what we look like. So it is really important that we are having that second set of eyes that isn't as subjective or as critical as what we would be with ourselves. Because if it was ourselves, and I've done this before, we get a few months into our build phase and we're like, yeah, that's enough, I'm ready to go through another cut. It's like, no, that's not enough. And having a coach there to be able to show you your before and after photos and be like, actually, no, like we are still maintaining a pretty damn good physique. Look, here's the changes. We do not need to make any changes just yet. So having a coach just guide you is incredibly valuable. And if you are doing your own check-ins, just make sure that you are tracking your data. But if you don't know what to do, just make sure you do have someone to be able to look after that protocols for you. At least then you don't even have to think about it. And I think even for coaches themselves, like I coach a lot of coaches, not just with PT mentoring, but like actual nutrition training. And even though they might know what to do, it just gives them an element of not having to think. They just submit their data and I'm like, yep, this is what I want you to do. They go and execute. Beautiful. We're getting the results. Okay. So never underestimate the power of a coach in your off season. Like that is where the magic happens, is building that long-term off season, whether you're in a contest prep or just like a lifestyle build phase. And typically perhaps you want to push that off season a little bit harder than what we would with a lifestyle client, just because that you really want to make sure that you're building as much muscle as possible, and you're about to go through a hard cut anyway, so you're going to be able to lose that body fat either. But we do always want to try and keep the athlete as lean as we possibly can, whilst building the calories as high as we possibly can. So there is limits. Everyone is so different as well. So that's kind of the main few tips I really wanted to leave you all with, in terms of just like having that reminder. Bulks can be tough, they really, really can, but it's so much of a mindset element than anything else. And I think if you can just push through that, magic will happen. Like it really, really will. So, get those calorie dense foods. And even what I also recommend is, if you're ever losing inspiration, which naturally you will because of food choices, which naturally you will because you're going to lose your food focus typically anyway, hopefully, go back, and this is what I even recommend my clients who do flexible dieting, not meal plans, is go back to your cutting protocols when you're on your lowest calories. What meals are you eating? Can you copy and paste that into today's totals, replicate those kind of meals, and just have more volume or fill in between with more snacks type thing? And you should not be hungry in a build phase. You should not be hungry if you are eating properly and volumizing your foods. If you weren't hungry when you're on your 1700 calories, but you're hungry now and you're 2.5k calories, there's an issue there. So you're going to want to fix your food choices. Make sure you're drinking enough water as well, because that's also going to contribute to your hunger levels, absolutely, but as well training performance, like absolutely everything. Like you're going to want to make sure that you're nailing those basics, like your sleep, like your water, like your mental health, and then it's just going to be a domino effect from there. I do have a reverse dieting course, which we are halfway through at the moment of the live round. So if you are wanting to come join us, it's not too late. This course will be available for purchase once it is finished as well. So if you are interested in coming to join and learn how to reverse diet for yourself, then it's an amazing course. It's been amazing so far. So I'm super excited about that. And then we also have a challenge coming up with Coach Sean. It is the cheapest challenge we have ever done. Such great value. I am so excited for it. It's only $3.97 for the super early bird specials. So get in now. If you're listening to this and a live view, it's going to be in the super early bird for another, I think it's 5 or 4 days until Tuesday next week. And then it will be the early bird, and then if you wait, the price is going to go up. So get in now. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I feel like I still want to just keep talking, but I don't want to overload in terms of information for now. I felt cool to talk about this because I feel like there's a few people out there who need this right now, and just always be as honest as you can with your coach. Like, I can't stress that enough. Be honest with your coach. You can tell them anything, or my clients know that they can tell me anything. It's a judgment-free zone, and that is how we'll get the best results that we can. If my clients are communicating with me clearly, openly, honestly, which I like to feel like they can, because it is a super safe space and no judgment. This is what I do. This is all I've ever done. This is not new to me. If someone is struggling through a build phase, I get it. I've been there myself. And there's so many strategies that we can implement, but it's such an individual thing that, and if anyone is struggling who isn't a client of mine, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram at Jasmine Templin Fitness, and I would love to get back to you and kind of steer you in the right direction. Sometimes as well, I'm going to keep going. I could talk forever. I would talk forever if I did not have check-ins to do. Oh my gosh, so many things I could say. But what I was going to say is, if you feel like you've gotten your calories up, if you're not working with coach and you feel like your calories are high enough, they're still probably not even high enough. Like, you still probably can push it a whole lot further. And there are sometimes periods of time when you're in a build phase where your body doesn't kind of like catch up necessarily. Like, sometimes you can gain quite a bit, even though your calories aren't super high. And what I often find is even just holding that, and if you need to hold calories for 6 weeks, and don't be shy to, never do it increase for the sake of increase. You want to be feeling super confident in your change protocols before you go ahead and do that. But sometimes if you need to hold calories the same for like 6 weeks, then by all means do so. You don't want to rush a build phase. So take your time. That's why we can go nice and slow. And that is how we get all of my clients to make sure that they are staying feeling good. So I really hope this episode helps. Quite a few tips to leave with you guys. If you're not driving whilst listening to this, then I hope you can write a few notes down on your notes on your phone, and just make sure that you just keep pushing. You can probably get your calories higher than what you think you can. I guarantee it. Do it every single time with a client. Done it hundreds and hundreds of times with clients. So it's amazing to see. And I promise if you stick to it, you are going to reap the rewards in more ways than you can imagine. So thank you all so much for listening. I hope this episode was helpful for you guys. Remember, we have that challenge coming up starting on the 10th of July, and reverse dieting course. If that's something you're interested in, DM me if you're not sure if it's for you, and I can let you know if it is for you or not, because it's definitely not for everyone. But thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you guys in next podcast episode. Please, please, please leave a 5-star review. It helps me so much, and I appreciate it more than you know. I just really want to get this podcast out there to be able to help as many people as possible. So I'd really, really love a 5-star review and a good little rating. So thank you so much. And if you can, share it on your Instagram story. Let me know your thoughts, what kind of resonated with you. I love hearing all of your feedback, because podcast does not like show me who's listening. It doesn't, like, you can't do likes or anything on podcasts. So sometimes you just feel like you're listening to like a little bit of a dead audience, even though you see the views there and whatnot. So I just really appreciate whenever I get any kind of interaction with it, because podcast platforms doesn't like let you do that kind of thing, but it's just the 5-star reviews. I really appreciate that so much. It keeps me going and I love it. Alrighty guys, thank you all so much for listening, and stay tuned. Episodes every single Friday, and I'll see you guys in next week's episode. Bye.